Welcome to the Jonah Drake Show, hosted by Jonah Drake. The Jonah Drake Show starts now.
And welcome back to the Jonah Drake Show. I'm your host, Jonah Drake. Hard to believe, this is season 3 on the pod? Yeah, I think that's right. Season 2 on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, leave this video a like, and get in the comments. If you're listening on Spotify, where this podcast originated, make sure you leave us a review. 5 stars would be nice, but if otherwise, let us know why. We got a lot to get into today. Week 0 of the college football season starts this coming weekend. Hard to believe we're already there, folks. It's football season. That's why we will be giving you a college football preview on this pod. Stay tuned for that later. The dog days of summer are over. Baseball is getting into our full swing. And speaking of baseball, that's our leadoff for today's show. Is the So we're going to go through the wild card standings. Just kind of give you my take on kind of what's going on in the MLB, starting in the American League, where we have the Tampa Bay Rays sitting at 79-54. They lead their division. They are 4 games up on the New York Yankees at the time of recording. Junior Caminero, he's a beast. He's honestly competing with Jordan for the MVP. We'll get to Jordan later. He's a couple teams down the road. Yeah, he's smashing the ball. Their pitching's been elite. If you look at their roster, it's a bunch of guys you don't know. Like, I don't know half their pitchers, but when you look at the LA, it's like a 3 for the entire team. So it's like their pitching's been elite, their defense has been solid, and the 79 games and 54 losses, almost with a 600 win percentage. Next, we have the Chicago White Sox, a surprise by most. They are leading their division. At the time of recording, they're 2.5 games up on the second-place Guardians and 5.5 up on the third-place Twins. This team's been a surprise. Obviously, we have Munetaka Murakami. He's been one of the big reasons coming over from Japan. And then we also have guys who have kind of jump-started their career and been a surprise. Guys like Miguel Vargas. Obviously, we saw him in the All-Star game. Hit that home run. He's been elite for this Chicago White Sox team. They sit right now at 69-63. Yeah, I think a lot of people are rooting for them because this was a team that last year just lost 100 games, and the year before that lost the most games in baseball history, and now they lead their division and are the second team in the American League. Next, we have the Houston Astros, and here's where it gets interesting. Yordan Alvarez is single-handedly carrying this team to a playoff spot. They sit at 500. 500. That's how bad this American League is. If Houston doesn't win their division, they're out, because if going down, they are the 7th best team in the American League. They have the 7th best record. But they are leading their division at a 500 record. The Rangers are half a game back, so honestly, by the time this goes live, the Rangers could have taken it over, or even the Mariners, who are 2.5 games back. Then after that, it's the Athletics and the Angels, both at 14.5. That's we know what they're doing. But as I said, Jordan's a beast. He's absolutely carrying this single-handedly, putting the team on his shoulders and carrying them to a wild card. And the team fighting for them, who's in second in their division, isn't even in the playoffs. Yet they're only a half game back. 2 contradicting things with the Astros, but there you go. And then you got the Yankees, sitting in first place in the AL wildcard, second best record in the American League at 74-57. Yet they are 4 games back on their division-leading Rays. Obviously, they have the injury to Aaron Judge. That stinks. But you got guys like Ben Rice absolutely coming up. Huge clutch. He's taken over Judge's role. The pitching has been phenomenal. They have a 98 run differential. That's only second to the team that we talk about next in the American League. They've been really solid, the Yankees side. They've been just floating around doing Yankees-type things, and they could really make a run in the postseason. And then the final team in the AL that we're going to talk about is the Boston Red Sox. Boston sits with the third best record in the American League, but it sucks because they are as well in the American League East, and they are 5.5 games out on the leading Rays. They sit at 73-59. This team 2 months ago was, I think, 13.5 out of a playoff spot, I think is what it was, and now they are sitting in control of the second wildcard spot. And they've went on a run, and they've capitalized. Obviously, they made the trade for Adley at the deadline. That was a big blockbuster trade, and he's turning out okay. They had a rough stretch at the beginning of August, but in their last 10, they have picked it back up, and they are 8-2 and have a 5-game win streak in their last 10. This team is a plus 105 run differential, which is phenomenal. Once again, I'm recording this on Tuesday, which obviously all of this could change by the time the podcast releases tomorrow, but Thursday, I'm sorry. But yeah, we're going to move on to the NL now, where the best record in baseball, not just the NL, the Milwaukee Brewers at 81-51. Jacob Mizorowski, absolute dog. Jackson Chourio has been playing great. You got guys like Christian Yelich, who even though he's out of his prime, he's not up to his MVP standards anymore, is still playing great. And here's the thing about the Brewers that I wish the Pirates did. The Pirates are so, money-oriented. They gotta save their money. They gotta, it's a business, and I get that. And that's the one thing that the Brewers do good. Second thing, the Brewers develop players. It's not that the Pirates aren't trying to develop players. They just can't. It sucks. The only good players on this team are guys that they drafted that were already developed in college. Paul Skeens, soon-to-be Seth Hernandez, and Connor Griffin, who was just an app. They developed him a little. He's been how do I say this? He came out of high school as a stud. He's been major league ready, I'd say, for about a year now. And then the two guys that you say, well, Brian Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz, well, those two guys were developed by Neil Huntington. And he also did a solid job, too. I mean, he got him to the playoff booth. I think it was, I saw the stat. We are 7 years into, I know this kind of turned into a Pirate segment, but let me just go on here. We are seven years into Ben Cherington's era, and as it seems, they are nowhere close to the playoff. Neil Huntington, 7 years into his career, it was either 2012 and they were on the brink of a playoff spot and they just sold it, or that was 2013, I forget what year he got hired. Obviously, it was way before I was born, and they were in the playoff. That is shown the failure that Ben Cherington has done with the Pirates. Okay, off of the playoff spot, let's go to the Los Angeles Dodgers. As of now, sitting 1 game back on the Brewers. They lead their division by an incredible 9.5 games ahead of the Padres. Obviously, they made the trade for Skubal. That was a big deal. And honestly, this team's just stacked. They probably right now are my World Series pick as of right now. And I don't know what else to say about them. This team's just every single position has a all-star on it. Every single one, except catcher because Will Smith is hurt, and Dalton Rushing. He picks fights. I don't. This should not become a Dalton Rushing show, and I'm not gonna make it, but he's done some things that I don't like. But they'll get Will Smith back soon. I think I don't know when he's coming back, but and then you got the Braves leading the East. They are 4.5 up on the Phillies. This team's also really solid. All three of these teams, I think, would lead in the AL. They'd be the number. No, they wouldn't. They'd be the Atlanta Braves would be behind the Tampa Bay Rays, but still, all three of these teams are really, really solid. And then in the playoff race, you got the Cubs, the Phillies, the Padres, and then our Pittsburgh Pirates are sitting 6.5 out on a wild card. It doesn't look too good for you guys. I've seen some guys who are really in on this Pirates team. The season's over, guys. Let's be real. We're 6.5 out with a month left in the season. Yeah, O'Neal Cruz has been hitting the ball good. O'Neal Cruz, he's a bright spot. All right. When we come back, we will be doing our college football preview. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so we are going to talk about the college football season. We will go conference by conference. I will give you my conference winner. I'll go through the teams in contention. I'll tell you how I think their season's going to go. And then we'll finish it up by telling you my eventual national champion and going through the playoffs. So let's get started here with the Big 12, where we have Texas Tech. Texas Tech is obviously the big giant in this conference, as you can tell. They are minus 105 to win the conference. They also have the evil villain, because the Brendan Sorsby competition all went down all through summer. He eventually ended up declaring for the NFL, and that he got denied, and that's for another video. But anyway, Will Hammond will now be the starting quarterback, and the thing that concerns me about Will Hammond is they may have not trusted him to be the starting quarterback, in the sense that they went out and got Brendan Sorsby in the transfer portal. And if they really would have thought that he was the guy, I don't think they would have done that. So I am interested to see how he does, as he's only been taking first-team reps since like July or late June, as obviously through spring practice and early summer practice, Brendan Sorsby was taking reps with the ones. So that's definitely enough time to get acclimated. I'm just really curious to see. But other than Will Hammond, this team's going to be great wide receivers, great defense, great run game. Will Hammond is just the one way that this could go wrong anyway, but I can't pick against them. They're going to the conference championship. Next on to Utah. They have a new coach, as obviously Kyle Whittingham left to become the coach at the Michigan Wolverines. It's been rough for Utah. They've been in the upper half of the conference a lot of time, but they can never just find a way to get it done. And that's just kind of been the story for Utah. I don't have much else to say. BYU at plus 550. You're 10. It's hard to believe Kalana Satake. He's a great coach. He brought them up from the deep depths of Independence Group of 5 and has brought them up to the top of Power 4 football. They did have some turnover at the defensive side of the ball, as their defensive coordinator, Jay Hill, left to coach at Michigan with Kyle Whittingham. And last in the Big 12, we have maybe one of my favorite teams, TCU, a team that I have going to the conference championship. And you know why that is? Because they got transferred Jaden Craig. Jaden Craig led Harvard to a 9-2 season last year in the Ivy League. I think he is a elite arm talent. I think he has a great football IQ. And then also with the mastermind of Sonny Dykes that he is on offense, I think those two will be able to take this team on a little bit of a sleeper run. This team does play week 0 in Ireland this Saturday against North Carolina. I would not overreact to this if they do lose, because we've seen some crazy games happen. Obviously, we saw Georgia Tech and Florida State last year. A couple years ago, we saw Northwestern win, and then I think they ended up not winning a game the rest of this season. So, like, if TCU does lose, I don't think it's a big deal to their conference championship hopes and all that. But I do expect them to win, and I am picking them to win, to beat North Carolina this Saturday. And on to my conference championship. I already said I have Texas Tech and TCU. I think the obvious choice here is Texas Tech, and that's what I'm going to go with. They're just too good. Obviously, I love the TCU potential, but I think Texas Tech is just too well-rounded of a team to not win this conference. Okay, on to the ACC, where we have Miami and Darian Mensah. Obviously, some of you guys may have forgot. This happened a long time ago. This was before the Glenn Sorsby whole situation, but it was like the first controversy of this season was Darian Mensah leaving Duke and coming to Miami. I think Malachi Toney will be a big help, and Darian Mensah will have a lot of passing touchdowns to Malachi Toney and a lot of passing yards. That will be a dynamic duo on offense. This team did lose a lot of pieces to the draft, especially on defense, guys like Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor, and then they also lost guys on the offensive side of the ball, like Francis Mauigoa and Carson Beck. I just want to know how this team can respond to that, and if they can. Their defense is really the question, and how they can refunnel those guys that they lost. Okay, on to Louisville. They're at plus 750. They have two big games right off the bat. They have Ole Miss Week 1 and SMU Week 3. This is a very interesting team. They remind me of Utah a lot, a team that's just up consistently at the top of the conference, but never seems to get it done. Last year they went 4-4 in ACC play, beating Miami. That game that they beat Miami ended up costing Miami a shot in the conference championship game, and they also lost to Cal at home. So, like, it was a very weird season for Louisville. I do think that they will do better than 4-4 in ACC play. I just don't think it'll be enough to get them to the conference championship. On to SMU. They are at plus 750 as well, and I like them a lot more than Louisville. And the reason of that is Kevin Jennings. Kevin Jennings, the entire team is behind him. They're wearing Kevin Jennings for Heisman shirts to media days. And obviously that's earned. He led this team to a playoff berth in his sophomore year. He had a mediocre junior year, and now it's his senior year. The thing about Jennings is when they made that playoff run, they allowed him to run the ball and scramble and use his feet. But last year they didn't necessarily let him do that. They made him turned him into a pocket quarterback. And that kind of, I think, took away some of his talents. He reminds me a lot of Lamar Jackson. He thrives out of the pocket. He thrives when the blitz is on, when he's under pressure. And I think SMU has to let him be himself for him to be good. But if they do, I think he could win the Heisman. SMU did spend a lot of money in the portal. They brought in proven production. They didn't just bring in like risky upside guys that could maybe win a spot and be good like other teams do. They brought in good players and they spent a lot of money in the portal. And I think that could lead them to a good season. They do have a cakewalk of a conference schedule. They play like nobody in conference. I don't think they get Miami. They do play Louisville week 3, I think it was, but other than that, it's a cakewalk of schedule. They do play Notre Dame late in the season, so that's definitely their toughest game, and I think I do have that chalked up as a loss, as Notre Dame is maybe one of the best teams in the country. But that's not a conference game. Couldn't help their chances less of getting to the conference championship game, which I have them doing. I do think that they make it to the conference championship game. Okay, on to Clemson. Clemson, I don't even know why I included them in here. I don't think they will compete, but I had to because I just have to let you guys know Clemson is not good this year. They are not the team that we know. This team could quit halfway through the season. Now, do I predict that? No, because I think Dabo is a very good coach, and I think that no matter what, he will coach this team to at least a bowl game. But will they be competing for the conference championship? No. We'll see a big test. They have LSU right off the bat in week 1. And on to our last team, we have Pitt. They are plus 2,000. Their line of scrimmage is a big if. I do trust Narduzzi's ability to develop guys, and he's shown it. But we don't really know who the proven talent is there yet. And one of the reasons is I think they kind of got outspent in the portal. I think they underestimated how much guys would cost in the portal. And then they ended up not landing the guys, and they got less talented players than they wanted to. They will be very good in the secondary, though. They've always been. Pitt has always had a great secondary, especially with Pat Narduzzi. Their home schedule is a cakewalk, but their road schedule sucks. Virginia Tech on the road, Boston College on the road, Miami on the road, Louisville on the road, and a sneaky road trip to Cal week of Thanksgiving. That's going to be a rough one. I think they have to win at least 3 of those. They're going to win Boston College. That's easy. They have to win Virginia Tech and Cal to have a chance of even competing for the conference title. And then they obviously have to win out on their home games. It's a cakewalk. Their hardest game is UCF in non-conference. And on to our conference championship game. I do have Miami getting there, and I do have them beating SMU, as I said. But I do think both of these teams make the playoffs. I think both of these teams will be very good. Miami's just too talented for SMU. On to the SEC, where we have Georgia at plus 280. They are a very young team. That's not something we're used to saying. With Georgia, they have a lot of returning players. Their secondary will be very good. Their run stopping will be elite. But the one concern from last year that I think does carry over into this year is their pass rush. Their secondary can be as good as it wants, but eventually they're going to get cooked if the quarterback has 12 seconds to throw the ball. The other question is who can catch the ball. We don't really know who's going to be the wide receiver, or I guess you could say tight end on this team. Somebody on the receiving end needs to step up for this team to be good. They do have one of the best O-lines in the country, so that will help with their receiving problems. And it will also help with their run game, because their run game is elite. And I think this team will be a ground and pound team with Kirby Smart. Looking aside from the roster and more just on Georgia's schedule in general, it's going to go 12-0 or 11-1 in their schedule. It's easy. They don't play many good teams. It's just, I mean, they do for the SEC, but for SEC standards, they don't play many good teams. And even if they do drop 2 games, I wouldn't be that concerned. This season's defined by how they do in the SEC championship and beyond. Can they get that SEC championship, and can they make a run in the postseason? That's how this Georgia season will be defined, not by how many games they win in the regular season. On to Texas, who, aside from Georgia, has a ridiculously tough schedule. OSU week 2, at Tennessee, Ole Miss, at A&M, and the Red River rivalry, all on the schedule. Oh, also at LSU, and with all that still puts them at plus 340. They brought in, I think this was overlooked, Cam Coleman, who may be the 3rd best receiver in the country, besides from Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. So now, Cam Coleman's going to be elite there. Arch Manning's on that team. I think this may be the most talented team in the country. It's just, I think they will get beat up by that schedule a lot. Like, they are not winning all of those games. I could see them winning a lot of them, but they are at least dropping 2 of Ohio State, Tennessee, Ole Miss, A&M, Oklahoma, and LSU. They are not winning that out. That is half their schedule against top 25 teams. That's just too much. That's too much. On to Oklahoma, who I think potentially could be competing for that conference championship, and I think they could have a run in the postseason. My only question about Oklahoma is John Mateer, a legit QB. We obviously saw him have Heisman moments in the beginning of the season. He was honestly leading the Heisman race. Then he got injured, and then he came back, and he was just mediocre. So I want to know if John Mateer can be a legit quarterback. On to Alabama, where Kalen DeBoer honestly sits at the hot seat. As I read it down, as I was planning for this podcast, they was still in the quarterback battle of Keelan Russell and Austin Mack, but just on, I think it was Saturday, they announced that Keelan Russell will be the starting quarterback, and I think that is great news. He is the perfect blend of the throwing ability of Ty Simpson and the rushing ability of Jalen Milgo, so I think he's jacked, of course, and then I think he can throw the ball deep. I think he can rush for yards. I think he is just an absolute stud of quarterback. And it's only, I think it's either his freshman or his sophomore year, so I really like the potential in Keelan Russell. I think he could turn into a guy like Jalen Hurts. Alabama has one of the best secondaries in the country, so they will not be giving up many points unless it may be on the ground. They obviously do have Ryan Williams for Keelan Russell to throw to. There are questions about the O-line, though. On to LSU. Sam Leavitt is the quarterback here. He does have injury concerns. But the big overarching storyline, they go to Ole Miss in week 3, and I am going to be tuned in for that game. That game will be that crowded, riled up for the return of Lane Kiffin, and that atmosphere will be electric. I want to see how LSU does there. They have an elite pass catching, elite run game, elite defense. This team, as well as Texas, could be one of the best talented teams in the country. I just don't know how they mold. The talent can very quickly fall apart. They could have injuries. Obviously, Sam Leavitt. Injury concerns. I just think that you could see this team winning the national championship. You could also see this team going 7-5 or something. It's very, very wide range for LSU. And talking about Ole Miss sits at plus 1,000. This is an entirely new team. A lot of the team went to LSU with Lane Kiffin. Everyone except Kewan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss, which were arguably their best two players. Their defense is entirely new, though. It's entirely players from the portal. But I think that Pete Golding can get them because he is a defensive coach. And he did have that defense going last year to get them to beat Georgia, obviously, in the college football playoff. Kewan Lacey, as I said, he is recovering from a surgery. But I do think that he can be one of the best backs in the country. And then, obviously, Trinidad Chambliss. I don't know what else to say. He's a dog. Besides LSU in week 3, they do have to play Georgia and Oklahoma back-to-back weeks in November, so that's going to be a tough stretch. I'd like to see them get one of those, but they will be dogs in both of them, I assume. And I think this team could make the playoffs. I think they are very talented. All right, on to the conference championship game for the SEC. I think that Alabama beats Georgia. I think that Keelan Russell is just a stud, and I think that Alabama is honestly one of the better teams in this conference. I do think Georgia goes on in the college football playoff to make a run, but I do think Alabama gets the championship here in the SEC. And on to our final conference for today, we have the Big 10, starting with Ohio State, who are plus 180 to win the conference. Obviously, you got guys like Julian Sayin, Jeremiah Smith, but they did lose a lot of defensive players to the NFL draft. But I have heard camp reports that guys are stepping up in practice on that defensive side of the ball. And on the offensive side of the ball, this O-line will be a very veteran line. I think they have 4 of the 5 starters returning, and I think they will be the best, one of the best, if not one of the best O-lines in the country. This schedule is brutal, though. They play Indiana, USC, and Oregon, and they play USC, Indiana, and Oregon in 3 or 4 weeks. Plus, they have to play Michigan at the end of the year and Texas week 2. Really tough schedule. Not as hard as Texas, though. I do think this team goes 12-0. No doubt about it. This team is the best team in the country, talent-wise. I think this team goes 12-0 and goes to the Big Ten championship. And then we also have Oregon. Oregon is great on the line of scrimmage. They have elite wide receivers in Evan Stewart and Decarian Moore. And by the way, they have Dante Moore, so that's going to help them a lot. I think this offense will score 30 points a game. The question is, can their defense hold up? And I think they will. I think this team goes 11-1, only losing to Ohio State and going on to play Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Then we have Indiana. They are plus 300. Also defending champions. It's kind of odd how this team is the defending national champions, undefeated season, and yet this team is not the favorite to win the league. They aren't number 1 AP. It's just kind of different. It's different than everything we've seen before. Obviously, when Michigan won it a couple years back, they were obviously the favorite the next year. Ohio State won it. They were the favorite last year. It's different with Indiana, and I think it's rightfully earned. I don't think this team is as good as the rest of the teams in this conference. I think there's a tier gap between Oregon and Indiana, and then I think there's another tier gap between Indiana and USC, the next team we'll be talking about. I think this whole season comes down to how Josh Hoover performs. Can he live up to the Fernando Mendoza legacy? If he can, this team may have a chance to go back-to-back, but I don't know if I've seen enough out of Josh Hoover to believe me that he can do that. Next we have USC. Jaden Mayava, their quarterback. I think he is a stud. I think he is a top 10 quarterback in the country. Plus, they're really solid at the skill positions. The defense is questionable. It's always been questionable with Lincoln Riley. If this team can figure out its defense, this team will be a top 10 team in the country. But if they don't, it's going to be a really shaky year for USC. And I think they do, and I think they make the playoffs, I guess is how I'll say it. And on to our final team for today, we have Michigan. Kyle Whittingham, the new coach. I want to see how he uses Bryce Underwood, as he has had a underwhelming career, we could say, at Michigan. Can Bryce Underwood take a step forward? And then how healthy is this team? They've had injury concerns, the defense especially, and then they have to play a lot of good teams. They have to play Oklahoma, Penn State, Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State. How many of those 5 can they win? I think they have to win 3 to contend for the playoff. Because if you drop 4 of those, then you're already 4 losses down and you are not making the playoffs. If you drop 3 of those, it's going to be really tight. I don't think... It depends on who you drop 3 to. If you drop 3 to Oklahoma, Penn State, and Indiana, but you beat Oregon and Ohio State, that's a good case. But if you lose to Oregon and Ohio State and your best win on the season is in solid Oklahoma team and a solid Indiana team, still great wins, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if that's going to get you into the playoffs. Plus maybe another loss somewhere else. Um, the conference championship, it's Oregon versus Ohio State. It's easy. It's chalk here. And I think Oregon does get it done. I think just because Ohio State's more talented, I do think Oregon has the better well-rounded team with the veteran in the quarterback position and Evan Stewart at wide receiver. And I also do think they win the national championship. I'm not going to build suspense. They are just too good not to pick to win the national championship. It's never been a doubt in my mind that Oregon is the best team. They have the best mix of talent and veteran presence and team togetherness, and they do everything right. Yes, you have teams like Ohio State who are all talent, same with LSU, and honestly, the team that I have going to the national championship is another team like this, Texas. Even though I don't even have them getting to the SEC championship game because of how tough their regular season schedule is, I think that this team can come together in the playoffs, and they remind me of just a little less talented version of Oregon. I think they have the skill. They have the veteran presence in Cam Coleman, and honestly, are we calling Arch Manning a veteran now? He is a junior. This is probably going to be his last year before he goes to the NFL if he plays good. And I think that will be a absolute great game, Oregon versus Texas. So that's about it. That's all I really got for today. We'll see you guys next week where we will have a week 1 college football predictions and a NFL AFC season preview. See you guys later.